Welcome to the Give Back Lab. I'm your host, Daniela DeGrandi. You've entered a space where bold voices, real stories, and unfiltered conversations come to life. Here in the lab, we're breaking bias, shifting thinking, and exploring the power of giving back through truth, vulnerability, and diverse perspectives. We celebrate diversity of thought and everything beautiful that makes us human. This isn't just talk, it's real, it's raw, and it's exactly the kind of space we need. We're unlearning, relearning, and evolving together. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at the Give Back Lab. I am pleased today to be with Lucky Gobindram, who is joining us. He is a New York technologist and entrepreneur, comes from a long line of creative business talent, and he's grown up around it, really. So I'm so thrilled to have you here and learn about your past and what has led you to where you are today. It's definitely an exciting space, and so welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You are very
Yeah.
welcome. So tell us, Lucky, who are you today and how'd you get here? What's your journey? Give
Oh,
give the audience a little bit of a background for who you are and how you got here.
happy to. So, like some others, I stand on the shoulders of people that came before me, without a doubt, right? I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the environment I was blessed to grow up in. My parents, my dad he's a creative mind that's been able to create some, culturally changing definitive products over the years. And I learned from him and learned from that environment. And my brother, who's my partner, thankfully, and we've had a great run together and continue to have a great run together. Um, was a tinkerer also when we were kids, and he would build websites and design and code things and whatnot, and that evolved. And we started building our own IP. We started helping others build their IP, and 15, 20 years later, I find ourselves at the forefront of building immersive technology for enterprises. So it's been a fun journey of learning technology inside out, hardware, software, and everything in between.
That's awesome. So where did your passion for tech come, right? So your dad was a tinkerer, an inventor, doing all kinds of exciting things. At what age did you and your brother decide, oh, this is like fun stuff to do? There's kids out there playing sports. Were you out there playing club sports or were you,
It's a little
you
bit
know,
when we were younger. I wouldn't say we were the athletes. That wasn't, but this is before there were like things like robotics clubs and teaching coding at school, right? Like we're kids of the 90s, man. We're born in the 80s, kids of the 90s. We were used to that point, right? Internet was just starting to bubble. Like I remember the first time we got a compact computer in our room. We had dial-up and you got AOL and started
yeah,
learning all these different things. And we just were lucky to be born in a generation that was experiencing the birth of computing at a commercialization level where it's in every household beyond like the office or maybe the library. And we were kids that were fortunate to have those toys, right? Given our father was in technology and had a fairly large company that he had founded and it was operating. So, we were just tinkering and learning, and my brother took it more seriously than me. But it was young, right? And it was something that just came with the environment and exposure and interest, right? And even before that, right, we would go to my dad's office and he had technicians that were like, people would ship back products that were damaged or were faulty, right? And they would had people there physically fixing the circuits and
right.
tweaking and tinkering and whatnot. And we'd hang out with them and we would see what he was doing and how he was fixing things. And, you know, we'd always do little geekier things like, for like school projects, like we took a piece of one project I remember clearly is like I took a piece of a cardboard box and we put all the circuits on there, we wired it, and it was able to be like a radio on there or different
Awesome.
things. Like we were always learning through those motions and we were able to take our love for technology and
Right.
the world evolving to be mobile first and iPhone 2 App Store 1 and right place, right time. And we started just leveraging our skills and helping others, and we productized that.
That's awesome. I love that. I love I love that it's kind of like the the original old school bring your child to work day, right? Now you bring your child to work day, and it's kind of been it's all about marketing, and the fun little things we do make it seem like, it's so fun. I remember I did it once and I'll never do it again. My my oldest, when he was younger, I brought him to work and he was like, "Oh my God, this is so fun. It's so great to come to work every day." And they missed that. But I love that your father allowed you guys in and gave you that platform to grow that part of your brain, right? That tinker, let's learn if this then that
Yeah.
operational methodology that exists within all of us, but unless we really hone it and embrace it, it's kind of hard to do later in life. So I love that you guys had that opportunity. So having that opportunity growing up in that environment, that encouraging environment, I would say I'm going to go out on a leap here and say if
Sure.
your father was an inventor and a tinkerer, that you guys were not held to perfectionism, right? That it was was it a, figure out about this and celebrate your failure and make it better?
A little bit of both. There was the celebration of failure and learning through experience. There was
Yeah.
also the expectation of excellence, without a doubt, right? I think I speak for Ash, but I would love to hear his thoughts. I'm sure I'll ask him after this. But like, you know, I think what excites me most is using tech not just to innovate, but to solve real human problems. I think that's why me and Ash are doing what we're doing with Kin America today after like all this time building, right? Um, and like, as technologists and strategists, I mean, I think our focus has been transforming how people use these tools for good, right? And how to do it at scale, right? And I think that's a really interesting part that I, l- through business and seeing my father, it's a multitude of different things that make businesses great. Obviously, good old fashioned business is good old fashioned business, brass tacks. But like at the core of it, to get to scale, right, there has to be things that transform how people operate, learn, connect, or experience. There has to be an emotional connection, right? There's certain other things that you're pulling on as levers to like sort of get those exponential results, right? I don't know. I think we're all learning as we keep going, but it's never been perfection, but it's been like mission, right? And
Yes.
results.
Right, mission driven where you don't get stuck. That's my point, right? It's like, okay, so we're going to do this and we're going along the way, and you guys have the ability to pivot along the way, right?
Yeah.
We have a vision on where we're going and things may come along the path, but they don't make us stuck. It allows us the
Oh
ability to
yeah.
pivot,
You have a
right? Which
lot of
is super
failures before.
important.
Yeah, like it's there's a thing that would always be said, right? And it comes from my wife, and she always tell me, she's like, "It's gonna be 6 rainy days for 1 sunny day." Okay, so like you're gonna have the sunny day, but you got to enjoy the rainy days too, right? It's a beautiful part of the cycle, right? Like it's like it's balance, right? So like you gotta
Absolutely.
understand that there's learnings in every step.
You gotta enjoy the sun when it's out and also learn how to rest in the rain, right?
Exactly.
I think that's awesome. So tell us about what you're doing today and the path to that, right? So you guys were tinkering, and how has that evolved? What is that journey of where you are today?
So me and Ash together have been building technology for almost 20 years, right? And I think our passion has been around emerging technology and business applications, right? And how they can
Mhm.
use this technology to improve or drive results. So, let's talk current passion. I think it's the intersection of AI and immersive tech, right? I find that to be really interesting, as does Ash, as does our core group, and team, right? I think we see the technologies changing, the computing mediums evolving, the intersection of AI and most things is going to change the way we operate, right? And the way we function and why we do what we do or how we do what we do, rather, right? So I think I'm particularly passionate about embodied AI agents, and you know That's loaded because most people may not get what that means exactly, but AI that lives in a virtual body, right? So immersive platforms are revolutionizing enterprise training, onboarding, daily operations, right? And how do you take things that are agentic? And we probably, at least people that probably listen to this podcast, I'll say, maybe not everybody today, not yet, are dealing with agentic things. They're talking to group, they're talking to Chat GPT or whoever they've named it or made it or whatever, and having conversations, whether it be about their fish tank or making dinner or your kid's homework or even questions at work, right? Barring like some things are not meant to be into those environments just yet, and some enterprises are a little cagey about it, right? But why that matters now, I think of 2025 6 trends, I think we're seeing a massive shift, right?
Mm,
AI agents are moving from chatbots to autonomous digital workers that can reason, act, and interact in multi-step workflows. So when combining these with XR technology, lifelike digital humans that simulate real world scenarios with empathy and adaptability, I think you get real world impact, right? So I think that a long way of saying that I think this is something that is gonna play well in the way we as humans can benefit from technology rather than taking humans out of the loop, right? So it's giving humans more superhuman ability to learn subject matter and feel
right.
presence, right? So um I think that's where I'm really excited about today and the current passion. The genesis of how we got there, obviously, I touched upon the fact of how I grew up or where I was, and my father being an inventor, entrepreneur, right? And then we have been building technology for 20 years, as I alluded to. So I find this to be the genesis of that, right? And the genesis of how do you instrument technology for good, for success, with outcomes that are measurable and advantageous to the learner, to the business, to the application vertical, right? I hope that makes sense. I think
No, it does. It does. I mean, so let's talk about something you touched on that I want to dive into. I've been in the AI space for a bit now, and there's the ethical conversations, there's the governance conversations, there's the, where we humans are going to be displaced by AI. If we keep feeding the machine will take over, all of those things, right? And so we have people that are now using AI as a therapist, which worries me. We have people that are using AI in certain capacities that, in to your point of AI as a superpower enabler, right? As in making us better and supporting our weaknesses, right? Which is how I look at it. I look at AI, yes, it's a technology, but I don't look at it as a technology. I look at it as a human tool, right? A tool that humans can use to supplement their ability to do more or do some, kind of that old joke of, if I can only clone myself, or if I could clone you, right? If you could clone little pieces of yourself to automate certain processes, certain things that you do that are repeatable and take that time back, AI can be so beautiful because it answers the, I wish, if there was one wish that I could have, it would be more than 24 hours in a day.
you only
Uh,
both.
right? And so AI can give you back time.
It certainly can.
AI can give you cloning ability of processing and things that you do.
Yes, and there's multi edges to that, but let's put that on a shelf for a second in a box, and let's touch on where you start at. Ethical considerations, guardrails.
Yeah.
There are multiple ways to solve this. Okay, now there's obviously the solo user that's just typing everything into GPT, right? From things that they just want to know instead of a Google query to things
Mhm.
that might be more provocative that you may not want in there, whether it be of your business or personally, right? But like people don't really get that yet. They feel like it's a safe space. I feel like that's very common in humans today. It's like nobody's gonna see us, but they are privacy concerns even beyond that, right? Um, but from an enterprise standpoint, when you're thinking about guardrails, you can instrument, layers that start creating preventative guardrails. One being information that goes in, so creating core baselines to instrument it knows that you are able to add on, and creating tools that do that into private, LLMs, right,
Mm-hmm.
or environments, right? Um, that's one side of it. There's also SLMs and nano models that can run on device. So it's not going to the cloud. So if you
Right.
instrument these things correctly and you invest in them correctly, and you get models that are smaller but hyper focused on the business application, you get better results. Two, you get control, right? So there are ways to slice it that it's not really running in an LM in the cloud. And for the guardrails of a human, say individual, like you're talking about therapists and whatnot, these things are going to be hard to prevent, right? But what we can try to make sure as a human race is that it knows that there's certain things it shouldn't answer and should escalate, right? Now, you can
Mm,
obviously trick it. There's obviously ways to make it go off
right.
the rails, and that's still there, but it's early days. It really is,
Right. There's
right?
always a loophole.
There's always a loophole, right? So, I think that we're going to find safety nets in these things. There's always going to be dark elements of the web and dark elements of society.
Right.
Um, you know, and bad actors, right? But we can try to safeguard it. Now, for the fact of like AI replacing humanity, I think there's certain things that AI should do that humans don't need to do, right? And humans will have to upskill themselves, right? There's been many different revolutions in lifetime and whatnot that have changed and shape shifted the way the society works for better or for worse. When Henry Ford came with the car, people said they wanted a horse and buggy, right? Elon came with autonomous driving that's powered by AI and computer vision. People are like, I don't want autonomous driving. I'm scared of that, right? Like, and not to say it's all parallel, but there's so many different things. Think about the elevator, right? Like, once upon a time, there was a male operator, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to push a button. I don't trust this computer to take me up 5 floors. I'll use
Right.
the stairs." Right? No, that's silly. And there's many different things and technology elements through history that have been advanced, and it will continue to be advanced. And it didn't replace humans. It changed function of humans, right? You don't need the guy to manage the elevator anymore. You don't need the guy to whip the horse for your horse and buggy to go, right? Right. And like each stage you see progression, but you see humans evolve, right? And their role in the cycle changes. And yes, the person doesn't want to advance themselves or pick up new skills due to what has happened societally and what's available to humankind, certainly they're going to get replaced, right? Because it just doesn't
Right.
make sense anymore. But, you know, thinking that they're going to become Terminator, I mean, that there's a risk of that. Don't get me wrong, right? The robots, doing what they want, certainly there's a risk. But I think, the 5% risk of that versus the 95% success of what's possible, you got to take that risk, and we got to be hopefully conscious as humans to try to steer the narrative towards the use of good for the benefit of humanity, right?
Right. I think a lot of the problem too is that problem. I think a lot of the fear comes from the fact that it's moving so fast, right? So you talk about the car, the horse and buggy, the car, and the industrial revolution and factories and machines and all of that stuff. All of that moved and shifted, but it did so gradually, right?
Yeah.
It was the long game. So, yeah, from the horse and buggy to autonomous cars is huge. It's a lot of years, right?
Compounding growth, though. You gotta
So
realize that.
but people had time to acclimate to it, right? So now with AI, I think a lot of the fear is coming from it's like a daily, weekly something. Sometimes it feels like every other minute, somebody is dropping a new patch or a new version or something is added, um, or something's going live, right? I think that the speed of growth in this space also makes people very nervous. And I also think that the way that people are using it, so, we as humans have a currency, and our currency is whatever gives us joy, right? And so it that's how we earn our currency as humans and our happiness and everything else, by contributing to society, by contributing to our families, by having thoughts and putting thought pieces together, whether it's written or verbal, whatever it is, we're contributing, and that gives us value. As people start to rely on AI and stop thinking for themselves less, they're starting to leave currency on the table that they don't realize, right? And I think that their bank is depleting. And so now you have somebody who was going into work, they rolled out this new AI, great. Now, and the joke is, oh, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to get paid to do nothing. Ha ha ha, right? Because they have this new software, that AI, that can help them be replaced or whatever. But what happens is every time that person engages in that, normally in a normal human, they lose a little bit of value, right? What is my value? What am I bringing to the table? What am I contributing to this business, to my family, to this role, to society? And I think that is something that we need to look at as well, because as we develop technologies and softwares and AIs that help the business, I think that it's also important to say, to your point of, we need to upskill and reskill, to say, how do you take, so I can take this 10-person team and put some AI into it and turn it into a 5-person team. But what do I do with these 5 people? Can I create another channel of revenue within this business? Can I grow this business? Can I do, how do you re-engage, upskill, redeploy? So how is it, tell us a little bit about what your space is right now and what you guys are working on and
I
how that
think this is a
all ties
great
in.
segue because
Yeah,
we do take the opposite lens, right? And like to us, it's like, well, how does AI, create scale, right? Because compounding growth of AI is there no matter what, right? Like, and that's what you're talking about, right? Where
right.
this, yeah, it's fueled by positive feedback loops and technological advancements and increased data and computing flow and enterprise adoption. So like it's going at lightning speed without a doubt.
Right. Lightning
So how
speed.
do we flip the needle, right? And make sure that it's not for the only the benefit of the business, but it adds to, and value to both sides, like the resources and the human capital of the business, as well as the business itself. So, you know, when we're building our platform, we're scaling a proprietary platform that lets organizations build and deploy AI powered digital humans for simulation of real world scenarios, right? So you've probably, or most people have played video games. There's NPCs, they're like scarecrows, they have no brain, they're running in circles, whatever it may be, right? So they aren't, what we're building just aren't avatars, right? They're intelligent agents that handle complex interactions, right? So like guiding new hires through onboarding or running sales simulations to teach somebody how to sell, right? And we've been focused on enterprise use cases, but the believable humans, they could be the role of a customer, a colleague, a teacher, right? And depending on the context they're given, they have a different personality. They know where they are. They know who they're supposed to play, their role. So you could be simulating something in a house or in an office or a boardroom or, in mixed reality in your space, right?
Mm,
So like all of a sudden you're able to have this role play that is not only dynamic because of that, but like think about the tertiary benefits, like, okay, curriculum, how do you scoring it? What's the next lesson, right? And so on. This flywheel of learning is now powered by something that is all knowing on what you've given it on your business and that role, who that person is. And then there's a profile on that person, right? So all of a sudden you're getting this push and pull that's personalized to your business, to that person, and you're able to simulate and role play. Choose your favorite scenario. It could be something that's internal, like you got passed up for a job promotion. Now you're talking to HR, you're upset about it, and you're, and the HR rep needs to know how to deal with that. Or you work for a construction company, you're selling gutters, and you're knocking on doors when you come to an appointment. How do you do small talk? How do you close a deal, right?
Right.
So, or maybe you're working on the floor of a retail store, right? And you have high net worth customer coming in, or somebody trying to return something that's used or whatever. So now you got to simulate so they're prepared to be a manager or be whatever it may. Things that are currently 2D, that are not personal, that really leave a lot to be desired and on the table for skilling the people in the workforce. we're we're giving them tools to do that in a dynamic ways to create a path to make those people better and have practice and be prepared.
Right. So can you share with us like one of your biggest wins within this space? Something that you really saw like huge amounts of value. What was the problem you were solving for? What did you guys do? And how or and it doesn't have to be that it's completely executed yet, but what is an exciting space that you see has a lot of growth potential or usability?
So we've been focusing on enterprise use cases where this tech reduces training time by 50 to 70%, right? Improves retention and minimizes the risks in high stakes industries like, um, let's say use the police force, right? For example, you want to train police officer on how to deal with de-escalation, right?
Mm,
So you could simulate in mixed reality or in virtual reality somebody who is, elevated. Let's say he has a knife in his hand, he's 20 feet out. He might come and stab you, he might not. You don't know, but it's a
right,
police officer, and you want to train them to de-escalate the situation, not kill that other human, right? So how do you take that role play, that person coming towards you and have a conversation and train them in the conversation, the words to okay, bring that situation down,
right,
or have him put the knife down, have a conversation, and move on instead of pulling the gun or the taser off your holster and escalating the situation, which you
right,
do have the option to do in the simulation, right? You could
right.
take out the gun and shoot the guy if you really want, but that's what we don't want you to do, right? So how do we train that person to have that conversation, get that person? So there's a multitude of different de-escalation type role play type things we can do in those types of things. That's just one use case of unbelievable human
Yeah,
being, a human that is currently in a bad spot and may be dangerous, may not be, but desires to engage with the police officer and may or may not be good. But how do you steer that or train that police officer in those skills to be able to do that, right? So now you're improving outcomes
right.
exponentially by changing behavior and giving them the tools and the words and the skills to do that, right? That's one good use case, I think. And that's something that's less enterprisey, more, but I think
Yeah.
it's a cool way to think about it.
But and that is it is a great way to think about it because there's, let's talk about the training piece. There's the classroom training where we can deliver messages and deliver information and deliver stats. And there's all of the video supplements to that, right? But having an immersive experience, I think also puts you in a different category from a human stress level when you're actually engaged in that similar activity because you've already semi-experienced it,
Oh yeah, it changes everything when you're prepared
right?
and you've had, a dry run in that
Yes,
situation. It all of a sudden when you're in the situation, you know what to do. You know what levers to pull, right? And we've seen that in enterprise sales, like training sales team on how to sell said gutters or roofing or shingles or home improvement project. We've seen it in things that we've done in boardroom simulation. Say you work for a big box brand and now or you work for a company that sells to big box retail, and maybe you're selling pet food, whatever it is, and you need to go in there and you have multiple stakeholders and you want to sell to them, and you have 3 or 4 believable humans that are sitting across
right.
the table with you and they're talking to each other and negotiating with you, right?
Okay.
Or you're a police officer and you have to de-escalate it, and that's one thing. So we've seen the believable human take the role of, you know, dangerous human, boardroom executive who's your buyer, homeowner, which is a husband and wife buying gutters from you, right? The
Right.
spectrum is wide. That whatever you think you can do a soft skill role play to train and teach a skill that's going to be repeatable, it's absolutely possible with our technology at
Right.
this point, right? So you're able to create these environments or use a mixed reality to do so, right? And the benefit here is muscle memory, right? It's like anything. You know, why does a surgeon or a medical student go to a cadaver lab to practice the surgery before you ever cut somebody, right? Because
Right.
muscle memory, learning how to do it, right? Why surgery using VR simulations now to do that, right? Because you see cohorts that learn in simulation and have those skills and that recall are exponentially more successful than people that are learning the traditional way where they are just being given a textbook then thrown into the wild and it's like, do it. They're like, well, I've never practiced it. I've read it, but theory is different than application.
Right. It's kind of like jumping out of an airplane.
So now
I
imagine that
sit.
simulation is not just a hard simulation where there's like a one journey narrative, but it's dynamic. So it could present all types of different scenarios, different conversation in real time, right? So
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's completely dynamic to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I say it's like jumping out of an airplane, right? Because it's think of I don't know if you've ever done it, but for
I haven't.
anybody out there who has done skydiving, you sit in a classroom and they give you, a couple of hour classroom lesson on all of the things you need to know about skydiving, and then they strap you up and they put you on a plane, and you go tandem usually the first time, or not. But you've never done it, right? So you can know all of the stuff you need to know, but right, so the cadavers for the surgeons, because you don't want the surgeon going into their surgery the
You trust
very
that
first
surgeon?
time they ever cut anything, right? Um, so I love, love, love this whole concept of simulation for these kinds of activities for training. And so how do you take that? We talk about at scale, right? And to me, AI at scale and anything really at scale is about integration and collaboration.
Sure.
You cannot have integration if you do not have collaboration. Collaboration, collaboration, collaboration is always what I say, and then integration will come, right? Because everybody is kind of lockstep. My son used to row crew, and I think of a crew boat, and I don't know if you know anything about crew,
Yeah.
but for anybody out there, it one person's a second off, the whole boat can crab and flip. And that's eight guys rowing, right, or gals, right? Eight people rowing in a direction. And so that's all collaboration to get that integrative flow. Um, so when I think about this kind of thing, that's what I think about. I think about how do we work in sync and use these tools to create better human experiences, more superhuman powers, right? If you have a chance to try something, try before you buy, if you will. If you have a chance to try something first, then you're less anxious about it. You're probably a little bit more on target. You're not 100% perfect, right?
Never. Perfection is
Never,
an illusion.
never 100% perfect, but I love that use case. What kinds of other things are you guys working with in this space? Because it's such an interesting space to be able to use this technology.
So the intersection of XR and AI is used in a number of use cases. We're very, very focused on this use case at Kid America today, the one I just shared with you, right? The big win is scalability, 24/7 personalized training without geographical limits, right? Um, you know, uh, I think tech is about empowering people and beyond the believable humans and that good stuff, right? That we're starting to productize, you know, an instrument for enterprise. We've been looking at a number of different use cases around operations and other sides of the business, right? So it could be, we've been working in an organization that has a large fleet of watchsmiths, right? And they're a luxury company. So like, how do you give that watch technician, the ability to recall certain instructions or information in flow as when they're, servicing the watch, right?
Mm,
So, this brand has a large catalog of watches. They have ones for hundreds of years and a magnitude of brands, etc. So some of these things is like tribal, right? Like some people don't know, it becomes problematic. Like, it's not documented well, whatever it may be. So it's another application that's operationally at scale. Something that we're doing that's tying AI to spatial, right? It's like, imagine you're there and you're like, oh, I'm servicing the crown on so and so watch. Can you tell me how I remove this debris from there, right? And it could give you like, conversational AI inflow, seeing what you're doing. Then it,
mm,
right? So another application. There's so many use cases, to be honest with you, that we're plugging away at, right? But as I said, tech is about empowering people, blending AI's precision with the human experience. So you create tools that help teams perform better, learn faster, and connect more meaningfully, right?
right,
The core, right? So I think it's whilst we see a lot of traction in what the platform is because of the recurring application across a number of different ways you can use it because of soft skills, conversational needs to learn and instrument. We see it also touching other things in the solo journey when they're doing things like I just told you about the watchsmiths,
right.
the spectrum, man. It's like,
Yeah.
it's going to continue to converge. Our
And
mission is to how it empowers people, though.
so how do you build these things, right? How do you collect the data and put the data into the system for it to be able to recall? How do you collect that
We're
information,
training
right?
the SLMs and the LLMs when we do it, right? We're feeding in repositories. We build orchestration layers that are middle layers that have additional information. It's a number of different ways where we're feeding it and hand holding the data through the process, right? To make sure that you know, um, it can recall what it needs to, where it needs to, right? So, like, whether it's the cloud infrastructure that's sitting
Mhm.
behind the front facing application, training the LLM, you know, helping harness that data, whether it be from, you know, textbooks or manuals that they already have, or, customer service tickets. So it's a number of places we're getting the data and we're collating it, coalescing it, and plugging it in, right? So, I mean, that's a very oversimplified way to explain it. But, we're building end to end here, right? Whether it be the front facing clients that the end users interacting with, the middle layers, or the infrastructure and cloud side of it that ties to the SLM or LLM, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like an end to end, product development, product life cycle type thing when we're working with. Right?
Yeah, it's a
But
it's an exciting space, right? Because you're also competing with the ever changing. So you're trying to gather data and train LLMs and all of that stuff, but you're also competing with the velocity that technology
sure,
is
yeah,
moving, and the world is changing and things happen, right?
I think sometimes people pay attention to too much noise. There's a lot going on, yes, but if you slow down and you look at it, it's not everything that you're hearing that are coming out in real time is valuable to what the enterprise need, right? When
Right.
you build things that you're trying to deploy into enterprise at scale, you need to think about hardened technology, right?
Okay.
Like every buzzy thing that comes out is not really relevant. Maybe things that shift the way people build or like quantum leaps and things, maybe.
Mm,
But those are not things you really instrument and orchestrate into an enterprise right at the jump, right? Things are going to be proven hard unless they're birthed at the
right.
enterprise level, right? Then it's a different take on it, right? Like what a meta may do or something like that. But we're thinking about like Global 2000, Fortune 1000 company, they're naturally slow, right? And i- is a lot of discovery up front and resources put into that to go into design and engineering to deploy. And when you deploy, it's like taking a vertical slice usually initially, and
Mm,
you're spanning across there. And you could it's not like wham bam money grab type thing. There's no magic bullet in this, right?
All right.
Uh, We all say tortoise in the hare.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we don't need to be fast. Measure twice, cut once.
So what keeps you up at night in this space, right? Because it's a fast moving space. It's an exciting space. It is a sea of opportunity. There's so much
Oh,
that could be done. What keeps you up at night?
just interest, man. It's not more. It's less about like things that make me have the heebie-jeebies and keeping me up like
Uh-huh.
that, right? It's if I'm burning the midnight oil, it's because I'm genuinely interested in a subject matter within the ecosystem, and I want to go deeper on it, or I want to learn something about it. So I'm going at it, right? I think we're at a very interesting time with the way we build things, the way we prototype, the way we're growing with vibe coding and AI and all this stuff, and like find yourself tinkering and
Yeah.
learning more than being alarmed. I think so. I wouldn't say it's per se keeping me up at night in the traditional sense,
Uh-huh.
but more from the sense that like intrigued and interested to be
Yeah.
part of it, right?
So what do you think the trends for 2026 are gonna be on that?
Trends for
What
20.
exciting things are keeping you up that visions and trends for 2026? Like, what are you excited about for this year?
Okay, looking ahead, I think agentic AI, like autonomous agents and embodied intelligence, will explode in enterprises. To be honest with you, right? I think we're interestingly suited because we've been taking a multi-agent system orchestration workflow and like our lens for of XR for hands-free training and digital humans and digital colleagues that augment human teams, not replace them. I think that's real, and I think we're right at that thing. And I think 2026 is a very big year for agentic AI and presence in that, right?
Awesome. So, okay, I want to thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having
And
me.
I have one last question for you. I would love it's not really a question. It's more of a what would you like to share with this audience for them to take away from the experiences that you've had as an entrepreneur, building and selling a business, now building this new business in this immersive technology. People, our audience who is worried about how AI is displacing their jobs, students who are worried about coming out of college with hundreds of $1,000s of student loan debt and not having a job to go to. So, being a young person in this space and having done this successfully a couple of times, what's your advice to them?
Oh, couple different things here, I would say, right? One, energy is everything, right? What you put in the world is what you get back. You know,
Love
I
that.
think most people don't realize that, right? And they're sitting there sowing their royal oats, festering and feeling like all in their feelings. Like
Yeah,
that's not going to solve anything, right? You put
right.
out positive energy and you're out there and you're doing things, it will
Get
come back
out of the
tenfold.
mud.
It'll come back tenfold.
Yes.
So I think energy is everything in truth, right? I think the other side of it is, you want to, you learn from everybody and everything, right? You can learn from the homeless guy on the corner, your peer, the leaders around you that you can ask, right? As a youth, have the conversations, ask. It doesn't get easier as you get older, right? When you're young, you have that to your advantage.
Yeah.
Ask, right? Be out there, right? I think that's a very big thing that, if I could turn back the hands of time, I would have done that more myself, right? Knocking on doors, asking questions, because people are excited to share with you and excited to give back most of the time. There's very few people like, no, 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 I'm not dealing with this, right? From my experience, like, you can get a lot of love, not, especially if you're interested and you're putting out that energy, I'll come back
Right.
to tenfold.
Right. No, I love that. And that's what this podcast is all about, right? It's all about taking experiences that we've had that we want to share with the audience to hopefully inspire them or make them feel less alone or give them some direction on something that we wish we would have known as our younger selves, that we didn't know, that if we could go back in time and redo, we'd do slightly differently.
Without a doubt.
Right. So I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time. It has been my pleasure to have you on
Thanks for
this
having me.
podcast of the Give Back Lab. Any final closing thoughts?
Closing quotes. I would say if people want to connect with me, I would love to connect with you. Feel free to shoot me a message on X or LinkedIn, and happy to answer any questions and be a resource to anybody that's listening.
Sure. You want to give the website address for your company so people can look it up? You guys are doing great things. So I'd love
Sure,
for
yeah.
people
I
to
would
look
say
it up.
check us out at kinemeric.com, KINEMERIC.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Lucky, thank you so much for being with us. It has been my pleasure to have you here on the Give Back Lab today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Thank you for everyone for joining us today on the Give Back Lab. Until next time, I'm Daniela. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for joining us today in the Give Back Lab. If today's conversation moved you, challenged you, or made you just feel seen, share it forward. That's how change begins. Until next time, keep showing up, keep speaking truth, and giving back in your own way. The lab is always open.